Scanning for audio.
Welcome to a Tin Dog Podcast number 216. Where has the time gone? Now, come with me, if you will, back to 2002, because I want to talk to you about Sarah Jane Smith. Not the Sarah Jane Adventures or the Sarah Jane Smith Adventures or anything to do with Bane or Luke or anything like that. No, I want to take you to Big Finish. Imagine a time when we knew categorically, without a shadow of a doubt, that there were going to be no more Doctor Who. That was it. Gone. 1989. Cut off. One last fit of Doctor Who-ness in 1996, and that was it. The end. Yes, there was talk of fans winning the lottery and using the money to revitalise the series and bring it back, but let's face it, it just wasn't going to happen. The only people officially keeping the blue light flashing were Big Finish. Now, into this world, the world of the spin-off could be introduced. Now, we'd had K9 and company, so Sarah Jane Smith as an individual entity existed in people's minds. It seemed logical to bring her back, so Big Finish set about creating two series. Series 1 and, rather surprisingly entitled, Series 2 of Sarah Jane Smith. They're not adventures, they're not anything like that. They are very, very different creatures. But as I enjoyed the Sarah Jane Smith adventures so much, I've set myself the task of listening and reviewing in order the entire 9 stories that make up the last surviving Sarah Jane Smith adventures. They probably, in fact almost definitely, don't fit into the whole canon that's established on TV. Imagine this is a slightly different universe, a different route taken, sort of turn left for Sarah Jane Smith. So come with me. Can't believe I just said that. No, seriously, come with me and we will talk about the Sarah Jane Smith stories. Now, I know a lot of you haven't heard these, and that's fine, because they are available on special offer, and this is not a commercial. It's up to you whether you buy them or not, but they are available for £25 for the entire set of 9 from Big Finish. There will be a link on the webpage. But let's talk about the first one, as we're doing them all in order. Comeback, rather marvellously entitled. This is the only one that I really owned on CD to begin with. CD, I can't believe it's now seen as a redundant format. I may weep slightly for the passing of Silicon. It's a 1-disc story, as are them all. Running time about 75 minutes, and this one was written by Terence Dix. Yes, good old Uncle Tell. I won't bother doing an impression because everyone else seems to do them. It's called Comeback. Here's what it says on the back of the box. 6 months after the last part of undercover investigation TV series for Planet 3 Broadcasting went out, Sarah Jane Smith is running scared. Living under false names, her true identity compromised, she has few friends and fewer clues as to her pursuers. Enter 3 people who will change her life. The mysterious Mr. Harris, old friend Ellie Martin, and a guardian angel in the shape of the roguish Josh. Now all roads lead to the village of Cloots Coombe in Wiltshire. But will she find the answers she needs? Well, the answers mostly, I guess. Now, in order to sew up a bit of narrative, you have the death of Aunt Lavinia before even the opening credits. Aunt Lavinia was a character who's been, mentioned far too much in Doctor Who past. But we have to have Sarah Jane Smith on her own in order to rebuild her. Now, in the Sarah Jane Adventures, Sarah Jane Smith is primarily a replacement Doctor, in the way that Jack is a replacement Doctor in Torchwood. Here, it's slightly different. Yes, she's the central character. After all, the series is called Sarah Jane Smith. But she's not the Doctor. She doesn't have sonic lipstick. She doesn't even have, and there's been no mention so far, and let's face it, I am reviewing these in order, so this might change, and, hopefully it will, but I can't see it happening, a mention of K9. Even if there is a mention in passing, the chances are he's probably broken in a box somewhere. This kind of fits in more with the Sarah Jane Smith that we see in School Reunion. But as I said earlier, this is Doctor Who Light world. There is no 10th Doctor, no 9th, no 11th. This is a world where the Doctor's left our screens. We're in a world of Big Finish, something darker. Because before Doctor Who came back onto TV, Big Finish did a lot of experimental, quite dark stuff. The homeless people in this story, or indeed the next one, are a lot more rough around the edges than we'd see on TV. Because on TV we've got kids shows, and this really isn't. This was targeted as adults who'd grown up with Sarah Jane and wanted something else. Story-wise, it's a bit, well, predictably Terence. That's not necessarily a bad thing. There's a lot of groundwork to do. We have characters to introduce without appearing clunky. We have a storyline to pull off at the end within 75 minutes again, which is fine, an investigation to do. We've got Volkswagen Beetles, we've got cash cards, we've got a modern universe, we've got cell phones, mobile phones, whatever you want to call them. It's definitely a Sarah Jane for the 2000s. And yes, it's a decent story. I did enjoy it, and that's what it comes down to. It's atmospheric, it's got some lovely audio-visual imagery, and I really don't want to spoil the ending. Yes, the idea of some sort of major corporation behind everything isn't exactly a new one, see Miracle Day, but that's fine. So as an introduction to the series, I enjoyed it, I'm looking forward to the rest, and I hope you enjoy it with me. Most of you will probably be aware that there is an Elisabeth Sladen biography on the way out. After the credits, you can hear Sadie Miller, who appears on this audio and many of the others, Elis Sladen's daughter in real life, talking with the BBC all about it. So until next time, when I'll be talking about God knows what, Sarah Jane, Children in Need Special, or even some lovely books, be seeing you. You have been listening to the Tin Dog Podcast. Doctor Who and its associated shows are all trademark of the BBC. No infringement is intended. Contact us at tin-dog@hotmail.co.uk.
Her character was so popular that 30 years after leaving the show, she returned as the Doctor's time-travelling companion before getting her own spin-off series.
And when she died earlier this year, she left behind a near-complete autobiography, so her family have decided to publish it in her memory.
In just a moment, we'll speak to her daughter, Sadie. First, though, here's a reminder of Elisabeth Sladen in her time-travelling days.
I thought all this might give me a good story. I'm a journalist, Sarah Jane Smith.
You realise this is a very dangerous place to be in.
Well, I can't help that. I'm stuck here now.
He modelled himself on you.
Oh, thanks.
Sarah thought you'd been, obliterated.
They thought they could use it to destroy me.
I preferred it as it was, but, yeah. It'll do.
I love it.
Hey, you, what's 47 times 369?
No idea. It's gone now, the oil's faded.
But you're still clever. More than a match for him.
You and me both.
No, Ronnie, don't you see? It's you, isn't it? Oh, you've done it again.
Hello, Sarah Jane.
Doctor?
Oh, and Elizabeth's daughter, Sadie, is here now. Very good morning to you. Of course, your mum, we lost your mum earlier this year, but she's still on television. That must be quite a strange experience for you.
Yeah, it's very surreal. I mean, the Sarah Jane Adventures are on all the time. It's funnier when you sort of see it out of context. I turned on the TV a few weeks ago and there was a guy, he had a cardboard cutout of my mum in his living room. That was a bit strange, but it's nice to hear her voice in the house sometimes when you just turn it on unexpectedly.
Is that how it feels? Does it feel, is it kind of a comfort? Because it's something, obviously, for most people, that just doesn't happen. When you lose someone, they very much disappear. Is it comforting to see and watch? Do you seek her out? You know, and the programme's on, do you seek her out like that?
No, not particularly. At the moment, it's still quite fresh, but I feel that everyone has been so supportive since my mum died, and it's quite nice to have that element of her there and that remembrance of her. And sometimes if I do feel a bit down, I must admit I go on YouTube and have a look at some of her interviews when she's being herself and not Sarah Jane, and that's a great comfort, definitely.
Yeah. And the Sarah Jane Adventures, as you say, still being broadcast. I mean, she died very quickly, didn't she? Because she was diagnosed with cancer and then died, what, 2 months after that.
Yes, she was diagnosed the end of February and died in the mid-April, so it was very quick, which I think is perhaps a blessing in some respects. Yes.
So is there very much more of the Sarah Jane? I mean, obviously people will continue watching those, but are there very many more episodes, and is there much more of her work that is still to be shown?
Sure. I mean, I think most of the episodes now have gone out, but I haven't watched them. I'm kind of keeping them as something that I'm going to watch perhaps on a special day or something, because it's nice for me to think there's an undiscovered part of my mum that I haven't yet seen. But I think most of her work now has gone out, has been completed. Yeah.
And if you're of a certain age, as I am, when you read through the book, the stuff that she describes working with John Pertwee, who was this extraordinary character, and then Tom Baker, of course.
Absolutely.
I mean, they had such fun, didn't they? That was what came across to me, was they were just going for it and enjoying themselves so much in the making of the programme.
Yeah, I think my mum says sometimes had a bit too much fun, and definitely with Tom, I think there was a lot of naughty behaviour, and they were told not to do things, and they sort of did it anyway, which was a bit cheeky. But with John, I think there was definitely sort of the father-daughter relationship to a certain extent, and he looked after her and really got her into the show and settled her in, and I think my mum loved them both very much.
So they're both quite larger-than-life personalities,
yeah,
to say
absolutely.
the least, weren't they? I mean, there's a description of when John Pertwee first comes into the audition rooms and he's got his sort of cape on, and
yes.
he just completely takes over the place.
Yes, John was the doctor at all times, and I think that he, like Mum, really cared a lot about the programme, about the fans, and he always wanted to present the doctor whenever he was out and about. But yes, I think my mum had quite a strange audition, really, with Barry and John holding the thumbs up behind the head. So.
And of course, she had to pick up the mantle of another assistant,
yes,
didn't
Katie.
she? Yeah. So tell us about that. Tell us about that changeover. And I think the previous assistant, Katie, gave her a gift, didn't she?
Yes, she did. Katie actually gave Mum this necklace. Now, my mum often exaggerated about things, so I don't know if this is quite true, but supposedly Liza Minnelli gave this to Katie, and then Katie gave it to my mum when they worked together on the episode with Matt, and then my mum gave it to me. So it's got a lot of lovely energy. It says "Speak Love" on the back, so it's a nice thing to kind of have of my mum, and it's nice to have a Doctor Who element to it too, I guess.
And I suppose one of the things that must give you a lot of comfort now is how much affection she was held in, because when she writes in the book about the fans, and she used to go to the conventions, and we've all heard about that, and you know, there is something special about Doctor Who and the people who are in it. People have a real affection for many of the cast, don't they? In a different kind of way from a lot of other programmes.
I know, it seems to have its own little universe, really, and after my mum died, the response was completely overwhelming, really. We were very shocked by the response to it.
David Tennant, who of course is, has been, do I need to say this? Has been. David Tennant calls her in his introduction to the book the one true assistant. How did she feel about how she was seen and her role?
Sure. I mean, I don't think that she ever sort of saw herself in any different light to any of the other assistants. I think she was just very lucky that she was in at a time when John and Tom were both there, who seemed to have remained people's favourite doctors for whatever reason.
And what strikes me about reading the book is she's very honest and down to earth and quite self-deprecating. I mean, you know, with David Tennant paying her that tribute, she writes in the book she doesn't understand why her character was quite as popular as it was.
No, I don't think she ever really understood that. I mean, for her it was just another job, really, and she cared about it very much, but I don't think she ever completely understood why. I mean, later on Tom said that he thought the reason they were so lucky is everyone making television now were all the people watching them when they were kids, and that's part of why it's all been brought back.
And which is why, yes, I mean, that's very much why your mum came back this time, you know, next time around, wasn't it?
Yes.
The Sarah Jane Adventures, because she was brought back in by the guy who was reinventing the whole genre.
Completely.
How did that come about? Was it literally sort of out of the blue, a phone call?
Yeah, very much so. They just, Mum was asked to go for dinner with Russell and Phil Collinson, the producer, and I think she was a bit hesitant. She thought, oh gosh, if it's just a few lines, I'm not sure if I really want to do this. And when they offered her the show, I think she couldn't believe it, really. And with School Reunion, the first episode as well, I think she found it quite overwhelming.
Yeah.
Well, the book is a fascinating read.
And I wonder, one of the other things she talks about in the book is about having you and then you growing up to potentially be an actress, and how she wanted earlier on to restrict those roles. Now I wonder whether you're grateful about that, or whether you would have liked to have maybe taken a few more opportunities.
Sure. Well, I think my mum was the boss, really. And I think you've got to think that about your parents. I was 8 years old, 10 years old, and a lot of the things I was going up for, there was the one about a little girl who was dying of cancer, and it's just, I think my parents knew what was best for me, really. So I suppose in hindsight you think maybe things would be a bit easier now, but at the end of the day, you know, she was my mum and what she said went, and that was fine by me, really.
And you pursue an acting career now, do you?
Yes, I graduated from drama school a couple of months ago, so I'm auditioning at the moment and working in a call centre, so living the dream. Yeah.
Oh, good luck.
Oh, thank you very much.
And it
Thank
is a
you.
lovely read, and anyone who you know watched over the years will find it absolutely fascinating.
It
The
is.
stories
Thank
from
you.
behind the scenes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sadie. Elizabeth Sladen, the autobiography is out on Monday.